All right, we're going to talk about OSS and BSS, one of the favorite topics that I know everyone always dies to talk about. Exciting topic, OSS and BSS, what could be more exciting? We've changed the topic a little bit, so if you look at the agenda, I think we've decided to twist the words slightly. And so we're going to be talking in a panel around why we can't have cloud-native networks without best-in-class OSS and BSS. So it's a slight difference. And unfortunately, one of the panelists could not be with us today. We're not sure why, except that maybe Nico doesn't like us. But thankfully, we have three experts here still on the panel to discuss and also answer your questions. So at the end, we're actually going to take questions from the audience as well. And so get those queued up. All right, let's get started, and we'll actually have introductions first. So maybe each of you could introduce yourself. Yeah, go ahead, Stefan. Yeah.
I'm Stefan Walraven. I'm co-founder and CEO of Inmanta, and we are an innovative software product company focusing on end-to-end intent-based service orchestration.
Excellent. Thank you, Stefan. Joan?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Joan Garcia. I'm the head of the backend network architecture team at Colt Technology Services. I'm very new to the company, so I just joined last year, but we have been working with Colt for many, many years, and I know the space very well.
Excellent. Thank you, Joan, and thank you for joining us at the Layer123. And Luc.
Yes, Luc-Yves Pagal Vinette. I'm a senior consultant on service orchestration, network automation, and service assurance for Nokia Bell Labs Consulting.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Luc. And see, the person that was supposed to be here with us isn't. That's Nico Walters. And actually,
Nico Walters.
So Nico decided that he wouldn't join us, but he's here with us in spirit. So let's hear from Nico.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nico Walters. I'm the CIO at CMC Networks, where I head up innovation, focusing on next generation services and automation and orchestration within our products. CMC Networks is a connectivity service provider operating in over 70 countries globally, with a critical focus on Africa and the Middle East. Although I'm not there in person, I'm hoping my cardboard cutout is sitting nicely and representing me on stage, and I'm with this esteemed panel in spirit.
All right, we've heard from Nico. See, he could be here after all. All right, so let's get started proper. That was more for Luc as well, so yeah, you can get him back. Anyway, so let's start talking about OSS and BSS, and keep in mind that Nico is watching. So let's start with what's happening in today's networks as they transform to cloud native, right, across the cloud, the WAN, mobile, on-premises. What are we seeing with OSS and BSS stacks today? John, why don't you get us kicked off?
Sure. So it's obvious that we are at a strain in this respect, okay? Because the business keeps asking us for flexibility, keeps asking us for being able to do more customizations for our customer base. And we obviously want to deliver on that. And we've been looking at an awful lot of technologies to do that. We've been looking at any sort of iteration for many years. How do we use SDN? How do you use NFV? How do you use new flavors of NFV, like Lean NFV, for example? So we have to marry these two worlds, fundamentally. And what's in between, it's the OSS and BSS stack. And I guess this is common for many of us. Those software stacks were designed a few years ago with very clear service models in mind, with very clear operations in mind. And when you have to start introducing things which are out of the norm, then things start to shake a bit, okay? So fundamentally, that's where we are looking at, and that's the strain we are trying to address at the moment. All this flexibility in the network infrastructure, all these new operational models don't help us at all. So we have to push the OSS, BSS stack hard in order to start dismantling it and adapting to the new technology landscape in the infrastructure.
Well, thank you, and I think that makes a lot of sense. There's a bit of struggle around that. Let's understand what's the cause of these struggles. So what's new about networks and the services that run on them, right? What are the new requirements? 5G mobile, wireline, wireless, and more. What's different now, Luc?
Well, the market is changing. Obviously, with the assumption of 5G networks, we see new requirements coming in. We see the need to alleviate services across domains. So now we have at the moment really static and siloed based OSS BSS functions. So now we see the need to modernize how OSS and BSS are structured to allow the cross domain operation to allow observability and then management across the board. So this is where we see the need for new generation of services, such as network slicing. Network slicing is only the very beginning, but we see the need to converge everything all together. For example, you have universal network slicing principles, where you have not necessarily only wireless, but wireline put all together to formalize an end-to-end service. So this is where, as well, we need the need for open API. So the panel just before was talking about open interfaces, open API. This is exactly the kind of modernization that OSS BSS need in order to accommodate, service orchestration, multi-domain service orchestration,
right?
And obviously, everything related to observability, but granular observability on a multi-layer perspective, but also on a multi-domain perspective.
Yep, no, absolutely. And I think that the multi-domain is getting better or worse depending on what your point of view is, right? It's better because, yeah, obviously I want end-to-end quality of service. Obviously I want end-to-end SLAs, but then that comes with a lot of effort, right? That's not easy. So given the effort, given what Joan talked about in the new requirements, right? So maybe Stefan, you could explain what your thoughts are about how do we make the journey and this whole transition easier to close the gap. I mean, there clearly is a gap, right, that they've talked about. What's needed for OSS and BSS and where things are today, right? How do we close the gap?
So I think it's also like things like service orchestration can help that to create higher abstraction so that the other components in OSS BSS don't have to know all the details, because now we all often notice that they know quite some things from the network. We're like, do you really need to know? And if we're getting more flexible, things are changing more quickly, you also have to change all those things. So if we can raise the abstraction, provide good APIs, high-level APIs, then it also enables these OSS BSS components to more easily adapt, and also they don't have to know all the details, so we can make abstraction of all this complexity, all those different domains. I think that's an important thing. And a second point is also about these APIs, they should be really built also for automation, and not just having an API. They should be able to handle it, that there are many requests and there are many changes, and not like once a day or once a week. So that's, I think, the two important points that we can do to simplify or speed up this journey.
No, that makes sense. So the abstraction layer that needs to be built to essentially sort of bridge what's there, instead of trying to make the changes vertically and couple it very tightly, which creates trouble every time new requirements, new services change, or when Joan gets asked again, let's change the OSS BSS, right, to adapt to this new service. You're changing the whole stack. But if you have the right abstraction layer, which is the key is not too high, not too low, just right? I say
there should be multiple layers.
Yes.
And that's the way, because now there's often one layer and you find, indeed, not too high, not too low.
Yes.
But if you have multiple, you can more easily switch things also below, depending on the abstraction layer. But then the top one can be really high to make other things more simple.
Right. Yep. No, I think the top one can be turn on the metaverse, right? Whatever that means. So anyway, all right. So given what we just talked about in this API in terms of the layers and the like, I think one of the questions that we will ask is we'll ask can standards help, right? What's the role of standards, and which ones are likely to be relevant? And to answer that question, again, I bring in Nico to answer the question for us, even though he's not here. Let's try.
Yeah, great question, Roy. I think it's a no-brainer. Standards are definitely going to help. Whenever we have multiple domains that we're stitching services across, and then we have various cloud providers and innovators in terms of delivering services that are brand new, we end up having disparate or little siloed APIs. We have difficulty in communication, and at the end of the day, the customers are going to be the ones that suffer. So when we look at standards, the aim is for to really drive collaboration, to drive efficiencies in interacting between service providers or partners and service providers, to really offer those sort of end-to-end transparent services that customers are expecting. So, within MEF, the LSO committee really focuses on lifecycle services orchestration. And when we look at the reference architecture, we can speak to certain standards and APIs that have come out of it and are currently in development. I mean, the big one, Sonata, is obviously the main focus at the moment, and that's to enable pricing automation and configuring and pricing and quoting amongst partners and providers, and passing that on to customers. When we go down the OSS BSS stacks, we also look at Legato, Presto, and Adagio, and those enable orchestration, deployments, and actual element controls. So that is not just the north-south elements, but it's also the east-west. So from a service provider to a partner, and vice versa, all the way back to a customer. So there's quite a lot of work being done and has been done within LSO for quite some time. And it's really all coming together now as we're seeing the adoption of more cloud-based services. APIs become more important. So exposing the right APIs, agreeing what those APIs can expose, capabilities, security, and interaction is all part of what MEF's trying to work on standardizing. And again, as we've seen with Sonata, standards have driven collaboration between service providers and partners, and allowing us as service providers to offer an end-to-end service to a customer. Cantata and Allegro are some of the APIs on that side, but then allow us to provide services end-to-end in a transparent way from the customer into our service and our service domain into a partner domain or partner domains, and back again, all seamlessly. So yeah, definitely no-brainer on this one. Standards are there to help, and I think it's really, really picking up pace. And we're definitely seeing in Sonata the fruits being there.
Excellent. Tied in all the points, see? Multiple layers, different abstraction. He knew what you're going to say, Stefan. Anyhow, so thanks to Nico for that answer, and to bring in the MEF and some of the standards that are being worked on. Very good. We talked about cloud APIs. So speaking of cloud, when we look at tomorrow's cloud-native networks, 5G, mobile, otherwise, are there new areas of innovation that can unlock new value for us, Luc?
Yes, obviously, when you think about new generation of use cases, you think about not only the collaboration between entities. For example, operators, as Nico was saying, so operators have been doing business all together for quite some time. It's not something new, but now they want to exchange quote, they want to exchange pricing elements, which is good. But if you go a little bit deeper than that, there's also need to provide observability on both sides. So when I'm collaborating with another operator, I want to understand what is happening on his side, and then to also appreciate the SLAs, but also not only that, but the QoE as well. Something is actually really new on that field with the evolution of cloud-native principles. If you look at the disaggregation of the RAN, we hear about the RAN SMO, the Service Management and Orchestration, and also the RIC, the RAN Intelligent Controller. So they are providing now a new element of near real-time observability that could find also equivalence on the 5G core domain. For example, if you look at NWDAF, this is exactly what it provides. Yep. So there's also some possibilities around integration and collaboration between RIC and NWDAF, leveraging on the same data lake, or eventually integrating NWDAF directly on the near real-time RIC. So we see a lot of evolution, possible evolution, but it takes some time. And obviously, cloud-native principles are extremely important. So when we say cloud-native principles, it doesn't mean necessarily Kubernetes. It means Kubernetes as a central part, but also microservices, all the tools that are supporting Kubernetes. For example, Ansible is one of them. You also have data collection based on Kafka streaming, but also Prometheus, Grafana. All these elements are important. This is what I call the cloud native infrastructure.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, I think is similar in terms of transforming the OSS and BSS itself, yes, using the cloud native principles to serve cloud native networks, because that makes the most sense. That alignment is important. And in the meantime, we can't rip and replace everything. And so the question is, what layers can you put in between for the time being, so that the top semantics and the syntax is still available to the business, while underlying you have the appropriate transformation, right? And obviously standards come into play as well, among other things. So excellent. And so then I got to ask, given all that's happening, do the current borders of OSS and BSS still make sense, right? Should we look at other, orchestration, provisioning, performance management, fault management, charging differently? Is there a different way to look at it now? Aside from the elements, is OSS and BSS the same way that we used to look at it, or should we be looking at it the same way? So maybe, Joan, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so that's a good one. Yeah. Actually, we've started using the concept of a borderless OSS, BSS thing. So that means that fundamentally borders are no longer any hard, okay? Because you can have virtual functions literally anywhere, okay? Even if you don't control the connection to the end side. However, demarcations are important, okay? Because in demarcation is where you define the context, where you define how you're going to be operating at the system level, also at the business level. Yeah. So we have to try and balance those two things in the new or future stacks. Okay, how do the OSS and BSS stacks actually helps us deliver business and deliver services across potentially borderless environment infrastructure?
Yep, interesting. So Stefan, I'm sure you got something to add.
So the borderless is also applicable not only to the system, but also to the organization, because now I often see we have the network and with the IT team, and they're separate. And actually it's getting more and more the same. You see it also with the CTIO, for example, because they combine, but then in the teams themselves, they're still seeing themselves as different, and they have to work much more together, definitely to get to the end-to-end automation, and that's also where the cloud native experience can be shared across those teams. So it's much more collaborative and not anymore like these different teams. So there also should be borderless within an organization.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, right? If we're trying to make the systems cross domains and borderless, if you keep the organization siloed, it's never going to happen, because the systems reflect the organization. Likewise, organizations reflect the systems, right? So if we're going to disaggregate and make things borderless, then you need to disaggregate and make things borderless on the human side as well, which is equally important, because that's the way things are reflected. And so that's an excellent point. That's a cultural element. Yes, Luc?
Yes, if I can rebound on what Stefan said, both, I've said, it's really true. And it's actually even truer to consider that when organizations are changing internally in terms of technology principles and concepts, they also have to change themselves. Right. Meaning that the structure, the organization themselves should adopt as well agile principles. You can't run these technologies, these massive changes, without having the organization changing fundamentally the way they operate.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's true. You can't have the CEO or CIO coming and say, "I will mandate agility," right? That's it. I demand that you be flexible, right? I mean, that's not exactly the right culture to create. So, and so given that, but one of the, I would say, sort of the borderless approach or the agile approach is obviously hyperscalers, right? So the question is, are there new innovations, maybe cultural processes, technology, or otherwise? Are there new innovations, particularly from the world of the hyperscaler cloud, that we could adopt to modernize our OSS and BSS systems? I'll start with you, Luc.
That's a great question. Yes, cloud native was actually accelerated because of the hyperscalers, if you think of it.
Yeah.
So now the adoption of cloud native principle for operators is actually a way to alleviate the way that services are structured, the way they are managed, and the way they are orchestrated across the board. So if you extend your footprint towards hyperscalers, it means that you need to adopt the same principles in order to leverage what they're offering. Okay? So it goes even beyond that, because now you see that hyperscalers are proposing edge solution with MEC, and now they're even thinking about edge orchestration, so which is quite interesting. Nonetheless, it has also to bear some challenges, right? So if you think about this, there's a lot of companies thinking about a cloud BSS oriented kind of evolution, which will be extremely difficult because fundamentally they will transfer some dependence from the vendors to hyperscalers. So at the end of the day, when they're thinking, well, hyperscalers are my friends, well, they will be your competitor the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, they're your
that
friends.
That would be the next phase.
Yeah, I think it's going to be this ongoing competition, right? I think that's the reality, right?
Exactly.
Which is that you depend on them, but as you depend on them, you also, in some situations, lose control. You have to make sure incentives are aligned for long enough to meet your business goal or your long-term goals, right? So,
and then if you even see new entrants on the market, like Dish Networks,
yes,
also Rakuten,
yes,
they have a tendency to say, well, I don't have any infrastructure, so my 5G core will reside directly in hyperscalers.
Yeah, because it's
So
faster. Yeah,
even my charging capability will reside
That's right.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, then what does a telco become? Are you just a marketing engine that holds spectrum with good legal frameworks, or is there more to it, right? I think that becomes an interesting question. But let's see what Nico has to say.
Yeah, great points, Luc. Absolutely with you. I think hyperscalers, just because of the scale, so to speak, that they operate in you're just looking at networking or in their commercial models, their OSS BSS stack plays an absolutely key role to make sure that they can offer the services they do, which is all based on consumption. And then also get the revenues and the billing that they, through the billing that they've got. So when we look at innovation in that space and things that we need to adopt or think to adopt, I think one of the things that most telcos are looking at, if not have done, is this concept of building commercial models around usage. We've been looking, and a lot of telcos have offered some form of an elastic connectivity service. And then obviously then in that space, being able to support it with a strong OSS BSS stack is critical. So we're seeing the adoption of that, that model in telcos, and that's driven by innovation within the OSS BSS stack to make sure that we can increase or amend or be flexible with the services that we provide at the same time. Then we can ensure that we track the usage of those services and then bill it and also get that revenue back. So that's obviously a key point. When we look at the other end, there's quite a lot of automation and domain-specific languages being built by the hyperscalers, and I think that's also a key element of a successful business operating cloud native, and that could be pulled through to the service providers and the telcos as well. So if we think about automation and trying to use automation as much as possible as a tool for driving efficiency and supporting our staff, that's definitely going to be key. And at the same time, if we think of DSLs, They tend to be very siloed in their deployment and their use, but if you put that back into the DSLs that MEF, for instance, are doing with an LSO, then you've got that standards being pulled in, and then you can offer a service that anybody can consume, whether you're consuming cloud provider A's services or B or C, using those same standard DSLs. Again, going back to what MEF are doing, will also, help collaboration. As I said before, it will also help smooth the development process and actually be able to deliver new services possibly in a faster way. So from my point of view, what I've seen in cloud is really the ramp up of automation. It's always been there, but the ramp up and really being able to almost automate every service that they've got is definitely there. The link and the tight integration within their OSS BSS stack to deliver these on-demand or consumption-based services is another element that we could look to adopt. And then we always come back to AI ML at one point. It's by far not as much as a silver bullet as people think it out to be, but again, slowly integrating that into our networks and into our systems definitely adds a lot of value. Being able to correlate data, being able to self-heal or make decisions. Now, I know there's very few telcos that'll be comfortable for AI and ML systems to self-heal and make decisions on their network without any human interaction. But the concept is still there. And that's something that's being pulled through from the hyperscalers, and something that we could look in and using within the modern OSS BSS stack. It's just we've got a lot of data, and again, AI ML coming in, providing us with categorization, with decision making, with predictive analysis. All of these things, will definitely improve our OSS BSS stack, whether it's on the OSS or the BSS part, or a combination of the two. That depends, but still, I see those are the things that are being done, and innovative things that are being done, and sort of what we can adopt realistically within, the next, this year, next year, going forward for the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, thank you, Nico. Excellent points, actually, right? And
Yes.
reflects what you said amazingly. I guess you the guys didn't sync up beforehand, but reflects what you said. And I think brings in that AI ML element. That's pretty important. I think one of the things that hyperscalers promised the telcos is, if you put all the data here with us, we can give you the analytics, we can give you the AI and ML. You could benefit from that, right? Isn't that great, Luc? You should.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, so I think, at this point, what I want to do is get the audience ready for your questions. We're going to run questions for maybe 10 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes, depending on what the questions look like. But in the meantime, before we do that, as you're thinking about your very thoughtful question, your very insightful question to ask the panelists, Nico can't answer, unfortunately, but we have 3 of the experts here. I'm going to ask the panel to do a little wrap up in terms of, so what are your thoughts, in terms of the conclusion, right? What's your thoughts around OSS, BSS, how do we make them best in class so that we can enable cloud native, or maybe sort of the other way around, that cloud native demands that you change because you don't have a choice. If your OSS and BSS don't follow, you're done for anyhow. But maybe let's see who's ready to do a little wrap up or summary as the audience asks a question. Stefan, go ahead.
I can give it a try. So I think it also comes back a bit to what Nico has been telling just now, like about the model that they are using, the hyperscalers, like the on-demand part, and that should be the driver for the how you will adapt your OSS, BSS, and all the automation around it. But in my opinion, it's also important to take control of this, have ownership as an operator, because if you want to be flexible and be on-demand and quickly bring new value to the market, then you should own it and not give it all away to the cloud provider. And so that should also be something in the mind of the operators when they're doing this transformation, that they should own this and be in control.
Yeah, no, I think carrier-led, hyperscale supported, as opposed to hyperscale-led, carrier supporting, right? That's it. Joan, your thoughts?
Yeah, on my side, I think, going back to the point at the beginning, so we are transforming the networks, okay, technically, because we are the new technologies, we have even more than ever challenges with multi-domain, and we want to make them consumable and agile, as long as resilient and the typical ones. So we cannot afford to keep operating with fairly rigid stacks on top. We cannot afford, as simple as that. And people will look at the workarounds. Looking at the hyperscalers, they've been looking at commoditization, okay, and they can leverage on that.
Yeah.
because it's easy to leverage on something which is commodity. I'm not saying we are commodity because we are far from that.
Right.
We have highly specialized networks, and we always have the latest version of something and the latest technology coming in, and we want to bring it in to have the competitive edge. But we have to bring that in a short cycle into our offering. We cannot just wait for 2 years to deliver all the promises of SRTE or whatever it is.
That's right. That's right. That's true.
Well, I would say that OSS, BSS stack transformation, it's actually a journey. It doesn't come out of the snap of a finger and then off you go. It takes a certain time. It takes also a certain vision about what you want to achieve on the market. Also the kind of differentiation that you want to bring out there, and also change the visibility that you provide to the market. But also, Joan, as you said, commoditization is really a danger.
Yeah.
Because if all players put the assets on top of hyperscaler environments, then in that case, it will become a commoditization of services. There will not be differentiation at all. And who will be the first beneficiary is actually the hyperscaler. So this is why, as Stefan was saying, operators have to own this strategy, this vision. And the way they want to create new use cases, new ways of charging, new ways of leveraging, for example, network slicing. I heard a lot of talk around network slicing. People saying, well, network slicing is a use case. Not at all. It's a function.
That's right.
So what you want to do
That's
is
right.
to use that as a net upselling.
Right.
You want to upsell other elements alongside,
right.
network slicing.
That's right.
So this is where you can bring a lot of innovation and new structures that would be beneficial to your success going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. Real-time cloud gaming is a use case. Network slicing can support that, right? But that's the function. That's a capability of the network to support that use case, which is gaming, or XR, or the metaverse.
Exactly.
Yeah, I always got to put that in. Anyway, so let's see what Nico has to say in terms of his wrap-up, and I think it's shorter this time.
Yeah, thanks, Roy. I think my final comments around this is just, if you really look at cloud native networks and you see the scale, and I think the demand for these networks to be so agile and flexible and able to be adjusted or changed at any point in time without human interaction, it's nigh impossible to achieve without a world-class OSS BSS stack. On the BSS part, getting our billing done, tracking usage, ensuring that we can operate this way without losing revenue is key. And on the OSS side, being able to take a customer response 2 a.m. in the morning and make those changes, automate the processes, have that customer immediately consume the services he needs without human interaction is key. I mean, one of the drivers for cloud adoption is that always on mentality. We don't have to send a request in, wait for a human on the other side to take a few hours, maybe more, to process that request. It really is always on, 24/7, 365 days a year concept that is at a click of a button. And I think it becomes more and more obvious that automation and orchestration systems within the OSS stack are so key to make this happen. And without them, we just can't operate like that. So, I think that's the main points I want to make is that focus on the change from traditional telco to cloud native in terms of delivering networks comes with that consumption, that on demand, that always on mentality, and we'll only be able to do that with a strong world-class OSS BSS stack.
Nicely wrapped up by Nico. And at this point, I was going to say that if you want to acknowledge Nico's contribution, you can imagine he took the time to record all his answers ahead of time, which was really nice of him. I asked if he would, and he did. So maybe we should show some appreciation for him, and I'm going to turn on recording now. I'll send him this after. So if there's anything you want to say to him, you're welcome to say it too. So I'm going to turn on record, and maybe let's just show Nico some appreciation. You can clap, you can...
Thank you, Nico.
Thank you.
right. I think that was very game of Nico to do that, and even though he couldn't be here with us. All right, audience, time for your questions. Yes, go ahead. Thanks, Mark Bonson. Go ahead, Mark.
Traditionally, then operators have spent about 1.2% of revenue on OSS BSS. You say it needs borderless, it needs cloud native, it needs all these changes. Does that mean your budget's going up for OSS BSS?
Excellent question, Mark.
This is a good question, but I could say that for some operator, OSS BSS was more a burden than a way to differentiate. But now with cloud native and the borderless kind of suggestion that we were making, they see much more value into OSS BSS, given the structure of cross-domain necessity that they're facing. So obviously, they will have to bring up the cash and to do something a little bit different. Well, some others are also suggesting that they might just, transgress and then, transfer the OSS BSS kind of approach to hyperscalers. There's also some other options. And then to transform it into some model that will be totally OpEx based.
I think in our case, the question is up for grabs. I mean, we have to streamline the organization to deliver at the end of the day, and we have to deliver value. So if that means fundamentally rearranging how we invest our money to deliver more and better and leverage in a more agile way in the network infrastructure, that's on the table, definitely.
Yeah, I think, but if you're trying to roll out 5G or new fiber plants and you're putting billions of dollars of capex in there, I think the OSS BSS investment has to be part of that, or the transformation has to be part of that. Otherwise, as we just said, you can't take advantage of cloud-native networks if you don't have a cloud-native OSS BSS. Whatever we call it, borderless or otherwise, if we give it a new name, it's still, those functions have to be done at the end of the day. Right?
Yes, there's also another aspect that is quite important, and we didn't talk about it today, but inventory is actually extremely key for operators. If you look at the way that domains are structured, this is really siloed and fragmented. But now with the view of cross-domain services, you need to have a federation of inventory. And then inventories will then, in that case, will be propagated to an OSS BSS that will have the bird's view of the entire infrastructure. So this is where the key is, in my view.
I think also a lot of, like about the budget, a lot of money is spent on making changes, but it's really hard to make those changes because it's so complex.
Yes.
So if we can make it simpler, gradually, then there will be still money invested, but it should also bring more quickly a return on investment, and you should be able to more quicker make these changes instead of having a huge investment and then after 1 year find out, oh, it's not exactly what we need. No, it should be much faster and much quicker feedback.
I think that's fair. I don't think there is, unfortunately, a choice. I think it has to happen. And I remember we were working with a tier 1 service provider and working on strategies for private 5G, edge, SD-WAN services. And so we made a proposal in terms of the strategy, and we said, here are the products, here is. And then you go in there, and then all of a sudden it says, Roy, we can't execute the strategy. I said, I don't understand. What are you talking about? It says, the charging function cannot accommodate this business model. And I'm like, no, that makes no sense to me, right? But it's true. That's exactly. And by the way, we can accommodate it next year, at the end of next year, because by that time we've transformed the OSS BSS. I'm like, that's too late. That's 18 months out, right? Mm. So I think that. I don't know if we have a choice, unfortunately, right? And so the carriers will have to figure out how that works. And certainly some of them already are, right? So,
but we have to assume something as well, is that operators have diversified, revenue streams.
Right.
And most of them are coming from legacy services, right? So this is why the transition out, this is why I was saying this is a journey, because you need to evolve, but at the same time maintain some sense of what is actually making your bread and butter every single day. So you have to, you have to weigh your options between what what you're doing today and what you want to do tomorrow.
Absolutely. Scary times, but exciting times. Is what does being a carrier mean? And what value are you bringing for your customers that's unique and differentiated, leveraging what's available to you in a smart way without giving up control, right, basically. So good. At this point, I'm going to transition. I think we are pretty much wrapped up. So if you could give the panel a show of appreciation. Thank you. Thank you very much, and we'll get you on your way to the airport. Thank you, Luc, for being here. Appreciate it. And thank you, audience. And next up, we have Benoit.